Great, and welcome everyone. We continue on the platform track. If you're anything like me, this lockdown period has meant a constant stream of packages arriving at your door, and those packages are enabled by some amazing technologies in commerce platforms that are available, and we know and love quite a few of them, or probably not so love some of them. But luckily today we have an amazing speaker with us, Zhuang, who's from a company called Commercetools, who has an API microservices style headless commerce platform. She's passionate about enabling that tech community and understanding the benefits of this sort of headless API driven approach, which we love at Apidays. So welcome, Zhuang. It's your time. I won't take it anymore. You're welcome to Apidays.
All right, thank you, Alex. So, hi everybody, I'm Zhuang, and a little bit about myself. I am a solutions engineer at Commercetools, but I came from a space of technology consulting on lots of different software as a service products. So in the space of the likes of, for example, marketing, sales, and commerce itself as well. And recently, I've joined Commercetools for about 2 years now. And just to share a little bit more about the company itself. So I think Alex has done a great introduction for us. We are a microservices-based commerce engine. So basically what we sell is commerce APIs, providing lots of different functionalities that you need within the commerce space. So the likes of adding items into the cart, managing your product catalogs, how do I then start to create my promotions and stuff like that. That's encompassed as microservices available to our customers. We are also a cloud-native or software as a service solution. So everything that is to do with the engine itself, the application development, the infrastructure setup and all that, that's managed by our team. What we are providing then is exposing this as REST APIs and GraphQL APIs for you to then start using this for any of your commerce needs and building that into your commerce stack. And we are recognized as a leader by all the major analysts as well. Interesting story there. When I first started around 2 years ago, it was pretty tough, especially in the APAC region, because nobody understood why do I need microservices for my commerce site. They were asking questions like, then what do I have on my front end itself? How do I have a storefront? And things like, how do I integrate with plugins to System X or System Y and stuff like that. But since then, it has changed dramatically. And these days, people have recognized that microservices is the way forward. And to be able to really keep up with all your competition out there, you need to really go on such an approach, which I will share in a little bit as well in the session later. And we are very happy as well. We're pretty new in the region, but we have got lots of great Australian brands coming on board, believing in the approach and have been very successful on the platform itself. The likes of Kmart, Baby Bunting, and so on and so forth. And we're happy to have a couple more to join us as well. So that's a little bit about myself and what Commercetools is about. And then we go into the agenda for today. Today, I'll be sharing with you some of the key trends that you might see in commerce architectures. The likes of, firstly, composable commerce. What does it mean for you? Headless commerce as well. And also the principles of MARC. And these principles, they started off in the commerce space, but it's highly being picked up by other parts of the businesses as well. So you'll see people pitching about composable architectures, not just in commerce recently, but across all general architectures. So these are the key principles that we'll be running through. And then I will end off also to show you some of the architectures then, which you can then build following these key principles of being composable, headless, and following MARC. So that's the agenda for today. And I'll kick off with firstly talking about what composable is all about. So it goes back to a little bit around the history of where commerce came about. So in the 1990s, when .com first started, everybody just wanted to sell online. It didn't matter how I did it. I just wanted to have a website to allow me to sell online. So what happened then was everyone started creating this type of platforms, which does every single thing that you might need to sell online. You might have your web front ends, you might have your commerce engines, payments engines, content, and any other servicing tools, all packaged into one single solution. And then on the back end, you might have data, you might have infrastructure bolted on top of it as well, a big dinosaur stack of sorts, just to help you sell online. And it worked because in the 1990s, the thing to do was just to get onto the market fast and be able to sell online. But subsequently, you'll see about 10 years later, omni-channel came about. People start talking about how do I sync up offline and online. And then mobile ads became a big thing as well. So you needed to not just serve up a web storefront, but maybe I start having mobile native apps and the likes of that. And the solution and the industry then was keeping this, but then exposing what we call the APIs in the middle here to connect all these different digital touch points. So the likes of your mobile phone, your actual web store, your in-store POS and stuff like that. I'm connecting it via the APIs. And also similarly to the other systems in the backend as well. So you'll start having accounting systems, you start having your ERPs. So a way to connect it just by increasing this thing we call the APIs. But shifting from, say, the early 2000s, these days we have technologies coming up almost every single day, new technology platforms, new ways to do things. And people start seeing that there are already tools that are working really well in the organization. And there was no need to kind of have everything bundled into a single platform itself. But every team that is actually managing their own set of functionalities can actually have their own systems to manage that. And the digital landscape of each enterprise then becomes a little bit more complex. Now I'm no longer just thinking about one single platform. I may have a separate system, for example, to do my marketing activities, run my campaigns. I might have a platform, for example, for, in this case, commerce, to do all my products catalog, running my promotions, or the carts capabilities as well. And similarly, all these different technologies within the landscape needs to come together to form the entire experience for the customer. So what we are doing right now with Composable is not trying to have one single platform do everything for you, but instead composing this out of everything that has been working well or something that you want to bring on board to help the business do better, to form that entire architecture here, where it's composable, individual pieces of that architecture, where it then serves up the entire digital landscape. So that's where Composable came about. And this really allows you to then innovate a lot faster. And I'll share a little bit on why. So going back into what composable architecture is all about, it's mainly made up of two components. So firstly, you'll see the digital touch points. So this can be any digital touch point. The more traditional one would be your web store. But these days, there's mobile, there's event and in-store. And there's also IoT devices that you can connect to your whole commerce setup. So all this are decoupled from then what we call the headless business capabilities here in the back. So these are individual different pillars serving up different functionalities or different business capabilities to help you serve up the entire experience. And you might ask, what is the benefits then to kind of go with such an architecture? Because now I no longer just need to manage one stack. I might be managing multiple different items within this entire architecture. The first benefit would be then, because it is decoupled, you'll see that all these business capabilities, they can be reused regardless of which touch points I am currently assessing it from. So from a customer perspective, irregardless of whether I am actually inside a physical store or whether I'm selling online, the salesperson should be able to intelligently know what are my purchasing activities like, what are my past purchases like, what are the things that I'm interested in, and what have I been viewing online. So that allows you to do that. Regardless of the channels that you're assessing it from. The second benefit then is your teams in the backend as well. So you see all these different teams. They can also be segregated. You don't need one entire team managing the entire solution anymore. So in the past, what you might see is whenever I need to make a small change on the website, I need to involve my IT members to help me make that HTML change just to get the item in. These days, with such an approach, I can then have individual teams managing different pieces of the business. So I may have someone in the content team who's managing all the look and feel of the website. I might have someone on the servicing side who's managing all the fulfillment, managing whether the orders is being placed, and then how do I get it delivered. These teams then become individual vertical pillars that could be lightly coupled. They might have interactions with each other, but they are not interdependent on each other to move forward, allowing you to innovate at a really fast speed. And the last piece then, and it brings on to our next concept of headless, is the freedom then to create anything that I want on the front end. Because when I'm bolted by the stack, I'm kind of limited by what's available in the backend to create that entire experience. But by decoupling it, I then get the freedom to really connect any kind of digital touch points to it. And that brings us to the next topic of headless. So headless itself, this was really driven by the proliferation of touch points. What you'll see is both on the customer side, so on the customer experience end, there's so many ways to buy things these days. And especially with like what Alex has mentioned earlier, especially with COVID, the lines of buying online and offline is kind of blurred. Basically, you just want one single stack to help you manage that out, regardless of where your customer is actually purchasing this from. We have really interesting use cases as well. Audi, one of our customers, they actually built an in-car interface within the car itself, and this is for the electronic cars. So within the car interface, I can purchase a extra horsepower just for the weekend, where the engine is kind of connected to the commerce setup itself. So when I make that purchase, I can actually get extra horsepower for the weekend. I can also have partnerships to, for example, the different parking services and the oil and gas services to allow the purchasing right from the car interface itself. So that's one of our very cool use case. And I think there will be much more coming up on board as well in the next few years. So really the core is to have that being the experience being made available to everyone, regardless of where they are shopping from. The next thing is also, it's not just on the customer end, the users end is also becoming more demanding. I think these days there's a lot of talk about the user experience. So the ability for your internal staff as well to manage out different things like your catalog, your pricing, segment out the customers and stuff like that, that also became a very important thing for the business itself. And because of that, API is really the way to go to kind of connect this up together, both on the users, the customer side, as well as the user side. And because of that, it's important then to create the right experience for both the customers and the users. So taking an illustration here, for example, what you see in the past, especially when we talk about the .com era, what you see is that the platforms were pretty much very standard. You have a cookie cutter template that you kind of follow to, and then you can sell your products, list your products on that template. So the likes of the legacy platforms you'll see, for example, in here, I might have lots of different bags, but it's difficult for me to tell a certain brand of bag or what's so special about the bag from another bag. It's more like a commodity to me. There's no real differentiation between the items. But to be able to to build up a real experience for the customer, you'll see a brand like, for example, Burberry. These days, what they're doing is creating that whole experience, the whole journey of how the bag is being delivered into the customer's hands. So it goes through they wanted to give that marketing message, where it goes through the entire process of designing the bag up to the craftsman actually crafting the bag, hammering in the seams for you and stuff like that. So this was only achievable because they decoupled the experience. They're not leaning into such an approach where it's kind of a cookie cutter site. Instead, they went for the headless approach to build up their website completely decoupled, so they had the freedom to innovate on anything that they wanted on the front end. And this is just one example. If we bring it into other things as well, you might start seeing that people are looking to build things like marketplaces. The experience from what you're purchasing from a marketplace versus what you're purchasing from an in-store might be very different. And lots of different other use cases as well around the scope. So to create that kind of experience, the right experience, you have to then start building that UI of your own. And that's when headless was kind of invented, actually. by Doug Horvick, our CEO. So what he wanted to do was that he believed that APIs can and forever will be consumed by any customer device, front end, or any other applications. It is the way forward because that's the only way that you can connect any touch points to your engine itself. And together with that, he also advocated for a few other concepts, which is the microservices-based approach, API-first approach, as well as a cloud-native approach, which then brings us to the next topic of what we call MARC. So MARC is a unit of measuring very fast speeds. And what it actually stands for is actually microservices-based. So having the business being individually developed, and this is including within the platform itself. So even within, say, commerce as an engine, you should have your different services within it. So your product management, your promotion management, your carts management, and all that as individual services that's decoupled enough that you can actually make individual changes to the platform without affecting the other parts of it. The next part is being API first as well. And that means that all your functionality and data should be exposed through an API. And there's more to being API first. I think the other key portions to note is when you're building out APIs, it should be built with the developers in mind because they are the ones using the APIs itself. So it should always be developer friendly. And the next thing is the ability to scale as well. It should always be able to, it should be built in a way to be able to scale so that it doesn't affect any parts when you actually start seeing spikes in traffic and stuff like that. The next piece is then the cloud nativeness as well. So we also believed in the ability to then scale in the cloud. These days with GCP, AWS, and the likes, it's a lot easier for you to start managing all your services and do elastic scaling without considering having to buy more infrastructure and things like that. So the next key thing was also the cloud nativeness of it. And coupled with, because it's built as a microservice, you're not restricted to having to scale the entire platform. I can now just scale an individual service, which I see there being more traffic being run and stuff like that. The last part then is being headless, which I've mentioned earlier. So decoupling that front end and back end experience. And we actually then formed this thing called the MARC Alliance. So the MARC Alliance is actually a group of independent products, all within the commerce space, believing in these key principles, being microservices-based, API-first, cloud-native, and headless, and then together forming this thing we call the Alliance to really propel the future digital experience with a open and best-of-breed technology ecosystem. And then bringing into view of why then this is important. You'll see that in the past when we talk about digital transformations, again, back to that setup that we had before, what you'll notice is that this becomes a multi-tens or hundreds of millions project where you need to start spending a couple of years to build this entire platform out. And the functionalities are kind of limited by what this platform provides you with. But within the few years while you're implementing it, what you'll notice is the business needs has probably changed drastically. And the technology might have already become outdated in the process. But at that point in time, it's kind of too late for you to make changes because you're already sunk in so much resources into building this entire stack itself. So there was a very high risk to making changes to this platform itself. And with a MARC approach, it is advocating the first thing that we've mentioned as well, the composable approach. And it is aimed to be pluggable, scalable, and replaceable. So because it is made up of these individual pillars, at any one point in time when I kind of outgrow the business, even during the implementation phase, if there's changes to how the market is purchasing from me, I can actually make these changes. So take an example, for example, if these days cryptocurrencies are becoming a bigger thing, if one day I might want to start exposing cryptocurrency as a payment, in the past I might need to wait for plugins of this platform or some ways where I heavily customize it to enable that payment service. But these days, if I have a cryptocurrency wallet providing me the right APIs, I can then easily just add on another service here to enable us to do that entire new feature that we are looking to put in. So it allows you to kind of modularly and introduce different products into the platform or different services into the platform when the business is ready. And you can then very easily deploy lots of different features at an agile way and in a lot more faster speed than before. And if any one day, if this platform starts becoming not as fast, or if there's something better out there in the space as well, it is also advocated for you to then make easy change to just take out a certain piece of it and replace it with something that's more mature in the space for you to achieve what you want. So that's why we advocate for this open and best of breed technologies. And it's an interesting thing as well because it forces this entire group. So the MARC Alliance is made up of a group of technologies which believe in this. So we actually have to kind of keep innovating to keep up with the other competition because we have made it easy for you to plug and play these different pieces of the technology out at any point that you want. So that's a little bit about the trends that is in the market. And then now we'll go into this piece of then what does it mean for me to compose this when it comes to my own architecture. So firstly, this is what a modern commerce architecture should look like. You might have front ends, and you might have multiple front ends as well. If you're serving up different channels, you should be having multiple front ends. The next piece is the API management layer. So highly recommended to do different things itself. So it could be as simple as doing API proxy or certain logging, but it also goes into, because now I'm starting to introduce a lot of different components into the stack, it acts very well as a backend for front end layer as well to help me introduce in the kind of group up all the different APIs that's being made to the backend systems for the right experience itself. And further to that, lots of people are also starting the integration platform as a service approach, where you then have lots of connectors and stuff like that to other systems within the architecture, mapping from one system to another system. So that's also highly recommended as a API management layer. And then what you see then in the backend is all kinds of different microservices serving the different business capabilities. So you might have one for commerce. You might have one managing your content. You might have some for managing your payments, order management, and stuff like that. The other thing to note that it is not compulsory to have every single item here within the stack. The key thing about composable is being able to add all this in wherever the business is ready and when the business needs it. So I don't need to buy every single piece of this components right from day one. In fact, what is recommended is to do it in a strangulation approach, where I bring in the pieces as and when I actually need them within my business. And then the next question would be then, how do I then start piecing all those pieces together? And I like to use this analogy here, where it actually talks about the concept of whether do I buy or whether do I build. And if I were to be looking at buying the technology, what kind of technology should I be buying? So we'll start off with the other end of the coin, which is the custom build approach. So the custom build approach, we see it kind of like as individual Lego blocks. You see there's so many different frameworks and different hosting capabilities and all that out there these days. These are like different Lego blocks. It does make sense if I have the technical capability to piece them together, but it might be a very costly process to put that together. But it does give me any flexibility because I can build without any limitations on my end. On the other side of the custom build, this is kind of like what we call the all-in-one monolithic solution. What this provides you is with an entire suite of services. So you'll see here like an example of a house, a Lego set itself that you can buy, which is great if I needed the house in this exact manner. I get all kinds of different functionalities right out of the box. It is not very complex for me to get it up. I probably have certain instructions on the Lego set itself to tell me how do I put these pieces together. But what's difficult then is when I start realizing that my business is not really what this house can provide me. Maybe I want to change the colors of the windows, or maybe I want to change the furniture inside. It becomes a little bit more complex to do that. And I might face limitations when I'm going down this path itself. In the middle is what we call the whole composable mark technologies, where it's APIs and microservices based. So you'll see here in the middle here with lots of different components, little small tools itself that can then be used to build anything that you want. So I'm no longer limited to building a house. I can now start building a bar, airport, and stuff like that as well. So moving from there then, and it's not a must to bring every single, it's not a one, or it's not an either or selection between these three. It's not either I custom build or I buy one of this deck. It's actually a mixture basically, because I have so many different components. It is really a mixture of which makes sense for me. So for certain parts of the business where it's highly complex, maybe I should go down the custom build approach. But for something that's generic, maybe I could make use of this approach, or maybe even a more microservices based approach as well. And then just going then into, there's so many different options out there. How do I make a choice? So I've just summarized this across to kind of put in a little bit of the popular technologies in the space to form up your entire architecture. So things that is to do with the front end, your API management, and all the other microservices. And yeah, that's the end of it. I feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on anything that I've shared earlier, or if you need any assistance in kind of selecting those technologies out there in the modern architecture as well. And then over back to you, Alex.
I love that, Yishuan. You know, that Lego analogy really hits home. I think, you know, a lot of our companies sort of have started down that big monolith and then learnt the pain of customizing it. But starting with the composable architecture in the first place and picking and choosing where your strengths are, and where perhaps you want to differentiate by investing in some custom development that is your secret sauce, versus you know, taking you know, a mature engine like what Commercetools has done, is amazing. So everything's composable, even from like the back end sort of admin PIM sort of functions in Commercetools.
Yeah. Yep. So I've actually seen a lot of customers who have done it, coming from those big monolithic architectures, and they don't do it right off from day one. Basically, they might start piecing out, like what you just mentioned, the product catalog. They might just bring out their product catalog first, subsequently bring in the cards and all that. So yeah, I think it's a very neat approach moving forwards, because you no longer have to think about this big implementation project to start from day one. Instead, you can do it more in a strangulation manner and pulling in pieces as you need it to be.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time, Yishuan. It's been super enlightening, and I think so compatible with the way that we are creating microservices today. So very scalable, cloud native. I think it just suits our style of development so much. So thank you for sharing. It's been super useful.
It's great to be here.
Great, and we might leave it there for the platform stream team. So thank you again for your